Welcome to the TheFallenState. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you all so much for being with me. I absolutely appreciate it. You can support the TheFallenState by joining our membership program on YouTube or going to locals.com and becoming a member there. And don't forget to get Punchy's coffee. It is good. Punchy's coffee. Go to jesseleepeterson.shop. jesseleepeterson.shop. I have with me today Dr. Katherine Albrecht. She is a national syndicated radio host, best-selling author, and consumer advocate. Doctor, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jesse. It's great to be with you.
Amazing. And so I want to talk to you about the Harvard situation, what's happening there with the president cutting the budget and all that. And I read that you went to Harvard, right?
Yeah, I actually got a master's in instructional technology, innovation, and education back in the 90s. And in 2006, I earned my doctorate in developmental psychology. And I spent 12 years getting both of those. Of course, I wasn't there the whole time. It's kind of part-time because I got married and had kids, but I spent 12 years interacting with that Harvard campus, living on campus, and right in the heart of it.
What made you decide to go to Harvard?
Well, my father had gotten his MBA at Harvard. And so as a little girl, I was 8 years old and we moved there. We lived in Harvard on-campus housing when I was a girl. I went to third grade there. And, I was always a hardworking student. I worked hard to get good grades and I applied and got in. So I did my undergraduate degree at USC. And I had a degree in business administration and marketing. And when it came time I taught school for a couple of years, did some tutoring, and applied to the graduate program at the Graduate School of Education at Harvard to learn how to write educational software. I thought I would take a lot of the strategies and techniques I was using to teach students and put it on a computer so people could, interact with it when I wasn't around. And so that's how I wound up going there.
That's amazing. And so your mother is educated as well?
So my mother has a master's degree, she's passed away sadly, but she had a master's degree. She was a reading specialist and worked with special education students. So everybody in my family, with the exception of my dad, was involved in either education or the ministry. So I have a long line of educators, and my degree is actually from the Graduate School of Education. So I'm following that long line.
Right on. And I know you said you're married, you have kids. And they're going to college, so they're all going to college. How many do you have?
I have four.
And are they going?
Two of them,
go ahead.
Two in college. One just got married last June, and at some point there may be grandkids. And my oldest is working with me doing technology and consulting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my kids are great.
So when your father was there and you were a child growing up, how has things change as far as college and what's happening now compared to then?
That's a great question. So something happened in the 1960s and 70s with the Civil War movement and the whole social change across America, and America's universities really switched into being I think they began viewing themselves as a source of producing cultural change in the country rather than a place for research and education. And so that change really began then. I remember my mom telling me about going to the University of Akron as a young woman in Ohio, and how they would sit around, this is the hippie era, and they would sit around and do consciousness raising sessions and talk about how there are no absolutes, that the values you were raised with of, courage and faith and honesty, that all of those were relative and really only mattered insofar as you wanted to believe in them, but everybody had their own reality and there was no real reality. And, that's in Ohio at a small university. The larger universities, the Ivy Leagues and the top echelon of academia took it way further. and began actually, publishing research talking about things like that. I was just talking about even today at the University of Copenhagen, their institute on the family. You would think an institute on the family would be looking at, how to raise children to be healthy and
Yeah.
how parents can contribute to their lives. Well, they're a very post-feminist program, and they're actually, and this is just an example to kind of lay the groundwork here, they're looking into something called exogestation. Now, gestation, of course, is when a woman carries a baby to term for 9 months in her womb. Exo means outside of. So, exogestation is this concept they've come up with that they said pregnancy is an illness. It's a burden. Our
Wow.
patriarchal society is given all the burden to women to have to propagate the species or continue the species. So they want to have machines outside the womb, where just like Brave New World, where they had the hatcheries, and they're actually with a straight face saying things like, well, then women will no longer be burdened with this responsibility, and it will be gender equitable. Childbirth will become equitable because men also can have their own children, and they can contract out to have this exogestation without having a woman involved. So that's crazy talk. I mean,
Yeah.
like
You
I
can
see the look
say
on
that
your face.
again.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just insane. But
Yeah.
that level of conversation where it's really detached from reality, it's detached from the lives of everyday people, and it is so psychologically like in their own tiny little world that I think they don't even understand how crazy they sound to the rest of us,
Yes.
talking about the burdens, that it's a gender discrimination against women that we have to bear children. I mean, that's biology, but they want to get rid of biology too. So what that thing that began in the 60s and 70s kind of went on that route to, we no longer do we care about the cultural traditions, the Western values, the faith traditions in this country, the Greek and Roman, all the great heritage that we have from Western civilization.
Yeah.
And they threw all of that out and really went to a radical, I would say almost Marxist, literally leaning in a communist direction of a whole different set of ideas. The problem with that, I mean, they can certainly do that, right? Anybody can think
Right.
whatever they want. But the problem with that, when you do it at a Harvard, is that Harvard is, it's the best university on the globe. It is the top number one research institution in the world. It attracts the best and the brightest. Most of our Supreme Court justices have gone to Harvard. If you look at the top CEOs and people in charge of our society in government and in industry, they all went to Ivy Leagues, Harvard, Yale, Stanford. And the problem there is that when that becomes an ideological hotbed of Marxism, of leftist ideology, then people get stamped out. And so we take the best and the brightest who might have come in with, who knows what political views
Right.
or conservative values. We put them in this mold. And it's almost like, did you ever play with those little Play-Doh things as a kid where you put the Play-Doh in and you kind of push the button and it pops out? Yeah, that's what happens, I feel like.
Amazing.
They take the raw material of very intelligent people and then mold them into those belief systems and then put them into the highest levels of society. And it's a problem.
So is that what you call brainwashing?
Well, it's subtle. It's very subtle. So I'll give you a couple of examples. You don't get to Harvard without being very aware of what it takes to get A's in your classes, because if all Harvard students have straight A's and a whole bunch of other things as well. So that's how you get into Harvard. So once you're there, they don't come out and say, Christianity is stupid or conservatives are wrong or we don't believe in that here. It's much more subtle. You'll turn in a paper, and in the paper, if you express a conservative value, or maybe you say something about your Christian faith, they will mark you down. You'll actually get a little red mark on there. It might not be on that section, but you'll get a bad grade. And you learn quickly to parrot back what the professor wants to hear. And Harvard students are the best at that because we've been doing that all through our high school careers. That's how we got there. And so it's subtle because once you do that long enough, you actually start thinking that way.
That's amazing to me that adults can lose reality of common sense, the reality, and that someone can cause you to think a different way and you don't know that that thinking is wrong. That's mind-blowing to me.
It almost happened to me. So, what MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, is the top technology school probably in the world. So, you got MIT and Harvard, and they're about a mile and a half apart. So, students at one can cross enroll and take classes in the other. So, I took a lot of my courses at MIT as a graduate student at Harvard. And while I was over there, I was taking a lot of courses in sort of postmodern theory about technology. And you're probably like, postmodern? Well, postmodern is sort of shorthand for crazy,
Yeah.
for like really weird.
Yeah.
And but very intellectual. And when you're first introduced to it as a student, you've never seen thinking or discussions like this before. And when you first see it, you're like, it feels like a whole new world is opening up with a new, different way of thinking that you've never thought about before. And because your professors are talking about how great it is, because you're having class discussions with other smart students about how great it is, you begin to kind of incorporate that thinking. And for me, a couple years into that, I remember thinking, I have finally like broken into the actual truth of the world. I mean, I have figured it, the real truth is here. And other people don't know this. I mean, I felt like I was sort of in the intellectual center of the world. Like I had figured out the truth and no one else knew it.
Yeah.
And the only thing that saved me, Jesse, was I had a friend who did not go to Harvard, who had known me from before. We got together and had dinner, had lunch or something, and he said to me, because I'm telling him all these new ideas, and he said, Katherine, you're becoming weird. And I said, what do you mean I'm becoming? No, I'm becoming enlightened. And he said, no, you're becoming weird. And so if he hadn't had the patience to have that conversation with me, because I was 90% gone.
Wow.
And he talked me back and said, the stuff you're talking about. And I said, well, of course no one knows. He said, yeah, no one knows it because it's weird. So I was fortunate because I went into Harvard as a Christian. A lot of people, a lot of parents send their kids to school and know that college is one of the times your kids are likely to leave the faith. You send them in as, Bible believing Christians, and they come out as, lesbian Marxists.
Yeah.
That's an exaggeration, but it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the process of how it happens. So I managed to escape my 12 years at Harvard with my conservative Christian values intact, but it was touch and go. It was a challenge.
And so are you a conservative Christian now?
I am, absolutely, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
And how are you treated by your peers?
I think they look at me as kind of as strange, as misguided. As I think it's confusing because the left, that academic elite views Christians as being ignorant, as just not being smart enough to have figured out to not believe in those old fairy tales. So when they encounter someone like me, who has a great deal of education and a lot of credentials, and I'm still believing in Christ, then I think they have to stop and ask themselves, well, either she's deluded, but she seems pretty smart, or maybe there's some truth to it. So I like to think that by proclaiming the name of Christ, that I am causing people who've just dismissed faith as a just something that the lower classes or the not very smart people do. I don't know what they're thinking, but I like to challenge that assumption and say, no, there's a great deal going on. And that leads me to Harvard's history. So Harvard was founded in the 1600s as an institute for studying the Bible for higher learning.
I remember hearing that.
All over, you go through Harvard Yard, and there's all these brick buildings and brick walls, and they're inscribed in stone. They haven't sandblasted them away. Are all of these sayings that are inscribed in stone about, the highest purpose of man is to understand, his purpose through the scriptures, and so that's all around you. And yet you go outside of Harvard Yard, and there are the free newspaper stands, and they have Marxist newspapers in them for free. So, you go into the cafeteria, and it's got a big thing about, just very woke murals on the walls. And so these two are kind of coexisting, but so Harvard's history is very much a history that says studying the Bible is the highest aim of man. And in fact, that's one of the reasons they had education in the early colonies, was to train children to grow up and read the Bible.
And so,
The statue of John Harvard, which you may have seen, it's a great big statue. It's
yeah,
bronze, and he's sitting on a chair and he has a book in his lap. Well, that book is the Bible. So
amazing.
I think it's ironic that Harvard has become has been so removed from its roots.
And so they don't even teach the Bible there now, right?
No. In fact, they have a school of divinity, which is the theology school. And I have spoken to a number of people who went there thinking that they were going to go to Harvard and get the best education they could on the Bible. And what they found instead was that they were given comparative religion classes. They were taught that Buddhism and Hinduism and Islam and all these other faiths were equally valid, and that it would be discriminatory for them to focus on any one of them, that it's really all about comparative religion and they're all equal. So they're not, even when they claim to be teaching divinity and theology, they're not.
That's amazing. I want to
Yeah.
ask about this recent decision by the government. The federal government recently decision to freeze over $2.2 billion in grants and 60 million in contracts to Harvard. What do you think
Yeah,
about
now
that?
they just added another billion, so maybe 3 billion here soon.
Right on.
So what people don't understand about the research universities, all right? So they're teaching universities and research universities. And Harvard, you would think it's a teaching university, but it's really a research university. And what that means is that the research that happens in our country into nuclear physics, into astronomy, into cancer treatments, into surgical innovations, all of that research, I won't say all of it, but the majority of that research is not happening in private research labs or government labs. It's happening in our nation's universities. So Harvard, I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I had a very innovative set of treatments. I had an innovative surgery that was developed by a Harvard professor who practiced and practiced medicine at the Dana-Farber Cancer Center. So there's this huge cancer center that is affiliated with Harvard. The professors at Harvard do the surgeries. They work there. They're doctors, but also teaching classes, and they train the next generation of doctors in these cutting edge procedures. And from there, it goes from Harvard and it trickles out to all of the local hospital near me now. So the $3 billion that the federal government is talking about cutting is money that goes to fund that kind of research.
Right.
So it's less about educating the students, that money at least, and that's money that's research grants going to these laboratories. So your average Harvard professor spends about 90% of their time doing research and writing papers and publishing and sharing with their academic colleagues the cutting edge of science, and they only spend maybe 10% of their time teaching students.
Right.
So it's not, you think of it as a school. If you go to your local high school, well, 100% of people's time is spent teaching classes, but at a college, it's really flipped around. We're at a top university. So by cutting those research grants, they're not cutting student tuition. They're not really even impacting the undergraduate students, but they're impacting our nation's competitiveness, because that's what makes us the most scientifically advanced nation in the world, is we have super smart people who are professors at these universities, and they are getting billions of dollars of funding to develop the cutting edge of science, which is what keeps our country ahead.
So is the government doing the right thing by freezing this money and making this decision to freeze the money? Is that the right thing to do at this time?
Well, it's interesting because Harvard, what President Trump is saying is, if you're going to continue to receive federal funds as a school, as a research institute and an educational institute, then you need to focus on those things,
Right.
and stop with all the politics.
Yeah.
Stop with all of the, pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel. Stop with all of the campus protests. They even let their professors walk out in a protest against Israel. Knock that off. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And if you want to continue doing it, you can. We won't stop you, but we will not pay for you to be a research institute when you're really a political organization.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's coming down to. I do not believe that President Trump fully intended to withdraw that money. I think he was using it as a point of leverage. Someone told me they have read his Art of the Deal, and he said in there that anytime he goes into a negotiation, he goes in with leverage. And so leverage means, here's my leverage over you. You need $3 billion. I have the $3 billion. Now that we've established that I have leverage, now let me tell you what my demands are. And I think his demands are very reasonable, which is stop with the politics. Do you know there are 13 Democratic higher education professors to every one Republican? That's not fair. That's not right.
Yeah.
And it's because in order to become a professor there, you have to come through the system. So the professors at Harvard have gotten their doctorates at Yale. The professors at Stanford have gotten their doctorates at Cornell. So you go through the system, but the system is all left-leaning. And so by the time you get to be a professor, you've already been molded by that system.
Yeah.
And that system then molds the next generation. So it's molding people to be very left-leaning. And President Trump has said, I want to review your hiring practices to make sure that you're not hiring 13 Democrats for every one Republican. I want to go through the things that your professors are writing, and to the extent that they're political and leaning, you need to correct that. So he gave them a list of demands, and I think it's reasonable.
So this is the right thing then for the president to do. He's doing the right thing.
Well, I think he is. I hope that Harvard does not take this so far that they reject the funding. I think even President Trump wants Harvard to receive $3 billion of our money, of federal taxpayer dollars, because it goes to making us, the most scientifically advanced nation there is. So he doesn't want to give that up, but I think he went into it hoping that they would be reasonable, and he could use that as leverage and get them to change these entrenched policies that have been in place since the 70s. And I hope it changes.
He also wants to get rid of the DEI programs there at Harvard as well. And is that a good? I think he's
getting rid of DEI everywhere, isn't he?
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's a good thing as well, you think?
Well, it went too far. Yeah, I think a lot of this went too far. I just got appointed to by the county commissioners to be on the board of directors for my county's community mental health authority. And one of the reasons that happened is that there were billboards, and this is all taxpayer money. And on those billboards, they were supporting a particular political agenda. Yeah. And the commissioner said that's not okay. You need to support all people. We need to we shouldn't be dividing people on the basis of race or on the basis of gender. We need to view people as people. And, the irony, of course, is that the people doing the DEI say, well, we're the ones trying to break down racism. We're the ones trying to break down discrimination. But they're doing it by identifying people in categories in a way that I think should not be happening.
Absolutely.
People are people, and the Lord sees us all as people. The only ones who are focused to that rabid extent, I think, are the DEI people, to be honest.
What I don't, I kind of understand, but I don't understand. There was a lot of protesting happening there, and they were shouting death to America, death to Israel. They were supporting Hamas. Why is it that these people think that they can come to our country and shout death to America on college campus? What made them think they can outwardly do that and get away with it? How is that? I don't understand why they think they can get away with that.
Well, and a lot of the people shouting that were privileged white kids from America.
I noticed that.
It's not just foreigners coming in shouting these things. It's American, kids who are 20, 21 who are out there shouting against our country. And again, I think that harkens all the way back to the 1960s and 70s when that sort of protest took place on campuses all across the country against the Vietnam War. And I think that attitude of, we students can shut this place down, we can run this place, we can rebel, we can run amok, has really been the prevailing attitude ever since then.
And so they are expecting to get away with it. Death to America. They're expecting to do that and just get away with it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a big constitutional debate. Can you burn flags? Can you, can you take an effigy of President Trump and burn it?
Yeah.
Can you, so they're saying it's free speech, but it's if they want to have their free speech, go ahead, but do not expect the taxpayers to then give your institution $3 billion. If you want to have free speech and be a political organization, then you're going to have to give up the support of the country.
That's amazing to me to see that happen. Explain to the folks who don't know, in case there's someone who don't know what DEI is or understand it, exactly what is it?
Oh my gosh, with diversity, equity, inclusion.
Right.
Do I have that right?
Yes.
I gotta remember that.
Yeah.
So these are the programs that were put in place just in so many places, in government departments, that were put in place in colleges and even in stores and workplaces to, they created entire offices whose job it was to make sure that there was a diversity in hiring. So rather than hiring, people on the basis of just being people, they were hiring people on the basis of their gender, on the basis of their race, on the basis of their religion, and a very discriminatory system, to be honest. Our American system says all men are created equal, and women. So the idea that somehow someone who was Muslim, or someone who was Buddhist, or someone who was, East Indian, or you name it, had more value than someone of a different race, it seems like a kind of a twisted thing. So I think President Trump has said enough of that, enough of the pronouns too. I can't tell. My daughter was applying to colleges, and we went to visit a number of colleges. She wound up at a Christian college, but we would come in and how they have the big auditorium, and they'd come in and say, welcome, prospective parents and students. My name is, and every one of the people on the panel said, my name is, et cetera, et cetera. I use the pronouns she, her. And I was like, why are you telling me that? I can look at you. Like, I know, I don't need to be told. And everybody was the pronoun that they looked like they were, but it was weird. It was just weird. And I have to tell you that was at Boston University. And when, this is a horrible story, but on the parent day, they have the big red balloons everywhere, and you walk around, and they have the welcome table. Well, we walked up to the welcome table, and they had a big bowl of candy. And I went over, you're saying hello, welcome, here's your packet, here's a map of the campus. I went over and I picked one up. Do you know what it was? Branded with BU. It had the BU logo on it. It was a condom.
It was a what?
A condom.
What?
It was a bowl of condoms.
Really?
To welcome parents to tour Boston University. And I guess the message they were trying to send, I think, in their twisted thinking, was if your child comes here, they will be practicing safe sex. But why would you put a bowl? It was like, I thought I was getting candy. So, and I turned to my daughter.
Mess.
When we went walking, we passed the divinity school, the theology school, and they had a big rainbow flag hanging outside. It's fine, and on the flag it said, "Religion isn't what you think it is. Come here and see how diverse it can be." And then my daughter, when she she toured the dorms, she actually thought it would be a great place to go to school until she saw it. In the dorms, they had posters up that said, go to this protest to restore access to the abortion pill for students. And what they were protesting for was to have these be given out free at the campus, nurse's office, so that any student who wanted to could just go in and get a free abortion pill. And my daughter, she said, I love this. I love so many things about the school. The academics are fantastic and the reputation is wonderful. But she said, I can't go to school here.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine being surrounded by this every day.
Yeah.
And I, in my head, thought, thank goodness, because if you did, I doubt you would be able to be the only person in an ocean of people thinking like that
Yeah.
to stand up for yourself. And eventually, you'd be coming home and arguing with me how those are the right positions to take. And that's
Yeah.
what college does.
Absolutely. What I know that we have the right to protest, right?
Yeah.
Should people have the constitutional right to protest, chanting death to America, death to Israel, blah, blah, blah? Should they have the right to do that in America?
Well, you can't shout fire in a crowded theater.
Right.
Right there. So your free speech does have limits. We know that. You cannot shout, I'm going to go over there and kill you. That's speech, but you can't say that.
Right.
So we have certain forms of speech that are not considered to be free speech that you can't say. And I think anything involving death, anything involving a threat, anything involving that level of violence is, and I would say it should deserve the same penalties as shouting, I'm going to go over there and kill you.
Yeah.
You're just not allowed to do that in a civil society.
I agree.
I was always raised by, I remember my mom, I was a kid in the 1970s, and there was a KKK parade of the Ku Klux Klan, which I was horrified. This is in our little town in Ohio. And I remember saying to my mom, they need to arrest those people. And my mom said to me, they're despicable. Their beliefs are awful. But here's why they're allowed to do that, because we have free speech. And because look across the street. And I looked across the street, and there were a bunch of very reasonable, intelligent people protesting against that. And she said the antidote to bad speech is better speech, is good speech. So, that always stuck with me. And there's a part of me that wants to say, shut it all down. You can't do those things. But if we did that, then those Harvard protesters would say, you couldn't support Israel. You can't just, so I like to think we live in a society where people can have reasoned arguments and that the best arguments will rise to the top.
Yeah, when I become president, I would never allow anyone, I wouldn't even allow to citizens, people who were born here, but I definitely would not allow foreigners to come in to my America and call me the big Satan and then chant death to America. I would not allow that. I would ship them back to home and make their heads swim.
That's why they have sent a lot of students home.
Yeah.
And they have deported a lot of students who were here on student visas, who had permission from the U.S. government to have the privilege to study in this country.
Yeah.
And when they found that they had been chanting death to America and organizing, things to disrupt the U.S. government, they sent them home. And I think they should.
Yeah.
Why are they here? If you don't like this country, you shouldn't be benefiting from the privilege of being educated in it.
And I noticed that the Allahu Akbar people were attacking the Jewish kids. They were really attacking them in the schools. What did you think about that, and how did the Jewish kids deal with that?
Well, Harvard has a big Jewish community.
Yeah.
They would cancel classes on Yom Kippur. They would cancel classes on Jewish holidays. So a lot of our professors were Jewish. So there's a big, big Jewish community in the Harvard area, in Cambridge and Boston. I cannot imagine how it would feel to be a member of that longstanding Jewish community. There's synagogues all around, and these are established communities that have been there for 100, 200 years. And to suddenly have a group of rabid, angry, violent, dangerous students on campus shouting against Israel, knowing that everybody knows, your ethnicity, it's a terrible thing. And so how can that be in a world where they want to do the DEI thing? They say, we we want diversity. We want, there to be no discrimination, no racial or ethnic discrimination. And yet we want to kill all the Jews.
Yeah. What
It's
a
ridiculous.
mess.
Well, and you know what's ironic is they are chanting, putting the Muslims up on the Palestinians up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Well, the Palestinians are Muslims, and those kids who are gender non-conforming with their purple hair and their trans agendas would not last a day in actual Palestine
Yeah.
because the people that they are supporting would tar and feather them.
Yeah.
They would lynch them. They would not survive in that society. They would be killed. They would be stoned. And
Absolutely.
so how crazy. Israel is much more supportive and open and liberal, really. They're supporting the Palestinians who would never support them in return. I wonder how the Palestinians feel to have the LGBTQ DEI woke crowd chanting on their behalf.
Grandpa, tell me about the good old days.
Yeah.
What do you what do you think about the attack upon white people? I've noticed that white people, especially white men, but white people in general, are blamed for everything. Every
Yeah.
problem is because of the white man. It's because in their own country. What do you think about the attack on white people, and what should white people do at this point about it to end it?
Well, thank you for asking that. It's a thoughtful question. I know that in during the George Floyd riots, I was living in Los Angeles. And one of the reasons I left Los Angeles, I'm living in Michigan now, was because of the discrimination that I felt there and that my daughters felt.
Yeah.
So I have two daughters that are they have blonde hair and blue eyes. They were told by their classmates, what's wrong with you? Why are you so pale? My one daughter got told, oh, I can't tell. You all look alike. I can't tell you apart. My daughter, who is now married, when she was in ninth grade, she dyed her hair black because she didn't want to stand out anymore and get the
Wow.
discrimination she was experiencing for having the blonde hair.
Yeah.
It's that community is very non-accepting of white people. And I got to the point during the George Floyd riots and during that whole aftermath when they were defunding the police and there was so much discrimination in Los Angeles that I remember at one point I was in the grocery store and a woman rammed into my cart, and I could see she did it on purpose. She looked at me and just shoved her cart into me. At the airport, my daughters and I got on the elevator, and the TSA employees, who were of a different race, literally shoved me against the side of the elevator. Just like acting like it was casual, but just slammed me, and I got a bruise from it. So I
Whoa.
started experiencing this. I mean, really a fear. I was afraid. And, I can't help the color of my skin. My daughter tried to
Right.
help the color of her hair, but it just made me, I mean, I've always been an opponent of anybody talking about anybody on the basis of something that they can't, that doesn't, my color of my hair doesn't make me who I am.
That's right.
Right.
That's
Who I
right.
am is a result of my personality, and it's a result of my thoughts and my heart and my faith. And it has nothing to do with my skin.
What I don't
And so,
understand, white people found it and created the greatest country in the world, America, with the help of God. They created the greatest country in the world, and then they decided to create a constitution that allowed other people to come into the country and appreciate it. But instead of coming in and appreciating, giving back to the country, they are attacking the people who built the country. And why don't white people just speak up and say, you know what, call me whatever you want, whatever. I'm not putting up with this. I'm not tolerating this. It's not true. I am not your enemy. Why don't they just speak up and either stop it or get rid of these people?
because I think there's an attempt to make people feel guilty for their skin color.
But why would they fall for that, though? That you can't. If white people didn't fall for it, they can't make them be that way unless they say okay
Well,
to it.
I think it's changing, Jesse. Fortunately, for a long time we had the cancel culture. If you spoke out and said anything like that, if you said anything that wasn't in exact alignment with that woke agenda, you'd be canceled.
Right.
Look at J.K. Rowling. I mean, I just saw she's on her $1 billion yacht, so she's she's doing okay. But she got completely canceled out of our culture. So many speakers who were scheduled to come to Harvard, they would get a comment that
Right.
or something that they said in the past would come up, and I would be like, that's not offensive.
Yeah.
you know um
But
do
they
you remember
gotta
The
get over the
Mandalorian,
fear, though.
the TV show?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the TV show The Mandalorian
No.
with the little it's a little Star
Oh,
Wars with
Star
that
Wars.
green.
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
Uh,
Okay. Well, I think her name, Kara, can't remember her last name, but she was canceled off the show, lost all her income, and was fired because she said the fact that everyone is censored, it's back, and she didn't even say it's like this. She said back in 1930s Germany, that's what people were doing to their neighbors.
yeah.
And I fear that that's what's happening now, that you can't speak up. And they said, you're being anti-Semitic. You're comparing your woes to the woes of the Germans and, the Jews in Germany. And they canceled her. And I canceled my Disney Plus subscription because of it, because I was so disgusted. But she's a good example. And she's now suing, actually. She's suing Disney years later now for what happened to her. But you quickly learn, just like I said, at Harvard, you learn how to say the right things to get the A's. Well, if you're an actor in Hollywood and you make a comment that they don't like, you'll be canceled. So I think that's why. And maybe it's changing now. Maybe people are going to be able to start talking again. But for
With
years,
Trump in there, yeah.
we just couldn't open our mouths.
Yeah. But why not love truth more than anything?
Thank you.
Put what first, love truth, and we love what's right more than anything. Above all things, we love what's right. Why not? They used to live that way in this country. Why not love that and not be afraid, knowing that God will take care of you with material things? Material things come and go anyway. But if you love what's right more than anything else, you have nothing to lose.
Well, and I think if everyone in society would just embrace that attitude, we'd have a much healthier culture.
Yeah.
Do you think part of it might be due to, the social media trying to get clicks and trying to turn us against each other and increase the amount of arguments and make you click on something, you're like, how can that be? And you click it. I think that it didn't used to be this way.
No.
I never felt. You remember when we were kids, they would say, never discuss religion or politics.
Yeah.
And you didn't discuss it because you knew it could lead to conflict.
Go to a fight,
and yet, what is all they ever talk about in social media?
Yeah.
Religion and politics, people's views. And they tried instead, we were told that don't talk about religion and politics to keep things civil, to keep things mellow, to keep people from fighting. They're doing the opposite. They have a strategy of we will discuss religion and politics in order to keep people fighting because that generates clicks.
And as long as they can keep you angry, they can control you because you cannot control a free person. Anyone who has anger, who does not have anger, is free. They are free, and you cannot control that person. But once you make them angry, you can make them feel good and you can make them feel bad. You have control over them.
Yeah, so the puppet strings.
They're constantly creating this war to divide and conquer by keeping the people arguing with one another, fighting one another. While they're doing that, these people are gaining so-called power and wealth. But they can't do it if you're not angry.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's biblical too.
Yeah.
I always remember the biblical advice: as much as it depends on you, live at peace with all men. And so I have a neighbor, couple doors down, who got really mad at me because of something about where I was putting my lawn clippings, and came over yelling and screaming and just being awful. And so I thought about that passage. First, I was mad. I was like, how dare they say it? But then I thought about that passage, and I went to the florist down the street. They had a little, whatever place with plants. And I bought them a basket with beautiful flowers in it. And I delivered it on their doorstep with a little card. And on the card, I wrote something very nice, whatever it was. I think I said, we're so lucky on our street to have people like you who are, keeping things the way they ought to be. Because that's what they thought is, I was wrong. Do you know the next day I came home and that was on my porch with that card unopened?
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's when I concluded, as much as it depended on me, I wanted to live at peace with them. So I did what I could, but it didn't depend on me.
That's
not up to that neighbor does not want to be at peace with me, and there's nothing I can do about it. But for each of us individually, that's our obligation. Is when we're angry, we've got to figure out how to take a deep breath and figure out how to live at peace. And if other people want to keep fighting, so be it.
Absolutely. So what's wrong with the blacks?
What do you mean?
They are very, not all, but most. And it wasn't like this when I was growing up. But it changed during the so-called civil rights movement, which was the worst thing that ever happened to the blacks other than abortion, was the civil rights movement. I noticed that they're angry, they're blaming, they become very violent, they rob, steal, and kill and get away with it. They're just out of control. And what's wrong with them? And we've done all we can do for them. We've given them reparations, we've given them affirmative action, we've given them DEI, we've given up everything, and they're only getting worse. What's wrong with the blacks?
Well, I think when you talk about the civil rights movement, because I haven't thought about this from that perspective before, but when people paint themselves as injured and aggrieved and have people to be angry at, the Bible says not to be unforgiving. The Bible says to forgive others.
Absolutely.
Lest we give the devil room.
Yes.
And so if we are unforgiving, if we are viewing others with anger and animosity and hatred because of our perceived, perception of what they've done, even if they've done something bad to us.
But they haven't done anything.
Well, but it would be reasonable, I think, for Black people in America to say that there certainly is a history in which things were done to, their ancestors, and in which there are, things. My son-in-law is Black, and we can have these conversations about just how when he gets pulled over, he's got to worry that he may get shot. So that's not reasonable.
He doesn't have to worry about that.
Well,
if he
depends on where you are.
If he gets pulled over, he followed the instructions of the cops, police. Show your ID, put your hand on the steering wheel, show your ID, let me check you out. Everything is fine, you can go. But if you're going to give the cop lip service and you're going to overreact, and the cops don't know what you're going to do, so they got to protect themselves. But I don't know anyone who've gotten in trouble when they follow the instruction of the law. And your son-in-law should understand that the blacks have been so out of order, they've been disrespecting cops, they have no sense of self-control. So if he is pulled over, he should understand, you know what? I understand why you're asking for my ID. I understand because I know the blacks are out of control. You don't know which one is the good one or the bad one. Am I right about that?
I mean, I honestly don't know. I haven't had that experience. I know that when I get pulled over as a middle-aged white woman, nobody's putting their hand on their, on their gun, thinking they may have to pull it.
Because white people are not known to be so violent toward the cops. And they have not, black children have been taught from day one, let me teach you what to expect when you go out there in the street. You're going to be discriminated against the cop. They're going to pull you over because you're black. They're going to do this. What do you think the mentality of the kids going to grow up to be? And so when they are pulled over, even if the cop is the nicest person on earth, they still going to treat the cop as though the cop has already treated them in a racist way, and they're going to overreact.
Well, I think it's complicated, and I think it's a difficult problem. But I'm going to come back to the Bible, because the unforgiveness, the bitterness, the bitter spirit, the argumentative spirit, whether somebody's black, white, or orange, it doesn't matter. If you have a bitter heart and you are angry and you are resentful and you're prideful and you're rebellious, you will get in trouble. That is just. I mean, that was true 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. It's true today. And I think one of the biggest tricks that the devil uses against people, is to fan those flames. Just
Yes.
get, I resent, I'm angry, they hurt me, I deserve, all of those prideful, rebellious, bitter thoughts. And they happen in men, they happen in women, they happen in children,
Yeah.
blacks, whites, Hispanics, doesn't matter.
No.
If the devil can get you thinking that you are a victim and that other people are to blame, then he'll get you shooting up a school like happened in Florida with that kid. We just had
Absolutely.
a 20-year-old who did a shooting down in Tallahassee.
I heard
And
about
what do you
that.
think was going through his head?
Yeah.
I'm sure what was going through his head is these people, I've been so wronged. I'm the victim. These people are my enemies. They hurt me. They deserve to die.
I know. What a
So
mess.
there's the mindset.
Yeah.
And I think the answer to all of that is Jesus. I really do. I believe that if people used to follow the principles of the Bible.
Yeah.
Maybe you remember Davy and Goliath growing up, that
Oh,
little cartoon.
yeah.
Okay, well, every lesson in Davy and Goliath was about, it was a moral lesson teaching children how to value courage and
Yeah.
how to value friendship and how to value, as kids, we didn't know those were moral lessons, but they were.
Yeah.
And so society used to value those things.
Yeah.
And our television, our media, our music was all positive. Now it's all negative and it's all about fighting and it's for the clicks.
That's
I
all
have
they
a friend
promote.
who's a makeup artist.
Yeah.
If you go on my website, it's Katherine-Albrecht.com. We'll have my picture up there. It's beautiful. It doesn't look anything like me because he's a really good makeup artist. He spent like 4 hours doing my hair and my makeup. Well, he approached a reality TV company, or actually they approached him and said, we want to do a show where you will take women and you will make them over and make them beautiful and we'll film it. Sounds like a great show. There's a lot of stuff like that on the internet. He said, fantastic, I love it. So he came up with, he's a Christian, and he said he came up with this idea that he was going to lift women up, really that
Right.
they would be empowered and happy about this. And they said, no, that's not what we want. We want conflict. You're going to have to find a way to have people fighting and to have people arguing. And he said, I can't do that. And they came up with all these different ways, where she says this and she's saying she's ugly and doesn't like her boob job. And he doesn't like, and her nose is too big. And and he's like, I can't do that. That is not what I do. I make women feel good. I don't want to contribute. So all of that is staged. It's all staged, and it's become such a part of our society. It's on the TV, and it's everywhere. It's in the podcast. It's in the news.
I know.
It's in the politics.
Everywhere.
It's on the internet. And no wonder kids grow up and think they're my enemies, and I'm going to be tough because they're trained to do that. We grew up with Davy and Goliath. You find a woman's purse on the ground, you find her and you give her back the money.
Absolutely. So I got to ask you this, and do you believe that men should play in women's sports?
You mean as trans? No. No. Oh, no. What a terrible thing.
And why are you against that?
Well, I belong. So this is a more, I'll give you a thoughtful answer because I have thought a lot about this.
Because of time.
Are you familiar with Reddit? Reddit, the online, it's my only social media. It's Reddit.
I am familiar with it.
So there's a group on Reddit that I would encourage anybody who's interested in this to join. It's called DTrans, DETRANS, DTrans. And it is, you can't post on it. It's locked, but you can read the posts that other people post. And on DTrans, it is all the people who have detransitioned from their gender transition. So it's all, the women who had their breasts removed and who had the surgeries and who took the testosterone and their voices deepened and they grew a beard and a mustache. And they post pictures. This is what I used to look like before I did all that. Here's what I look like when I was living as a man. Here's what I look like now. And the heartbreaking stories of these people, they come on there. I've cried reading their stories.
Yeah.
I was just a confused 14-year-old. Why did somebody not help me instead of mutilate my body? And it's hundreds of stories that you read on there. So, this notion that a man can become a woman, the very people who've tried it are the people telling us that it never really worked. They never really became a man or a woman. They were what they were at the beginning. Even if their breasts were cut off, they were still women.
And so do you believe that women should be able to play in men's sports?
I am not a fan of that because one of the things about the genders is that men have more upper body strength than
Yeah,
women. I
absolutely.
mean, it's just a fact. It's one of the reasons why, women carry mace because we're not as strong as men.
Yeah,
And so if you start having men play women's sports and women play men's sports, those are places where your physical strength matters a lot.
yeah.
Now, if you want to talk about chess, if you want to talk about music or other things where strength is not an issue, then I would say, yeah, I think the gender should be able to both participate. But when you're talking about physical, especially in sports like football, where people are boxing, where people are actually bumping into each other and
Yeah.
knocking each other around, that should not be.
Let me ask, did you say you have a black son-in-law?
I do.
What?
I do. Yes. He's
What
wonderful.
so do you guys have to tiptoe around him, like be careful what you say and how you act and all that? And do you have to
It's
serve
it's
sweet
funny
potatoes?
because growing
And when
up,
you have holidays, do you
his
have to serve
family,
sweet
his
potato?
family were our family's best friends growing up. So we attended the same church together. We met when she was 6 months old, and he was a little kid. So I've known their family for years and years and years.
Oh,
I've known them
okay.
for a long, long time. And if anything ever happened to me, I would when they were kids, I would have wanted his family to adopt my kids. I mean, they're like brothers and
Right on.
sisters to me.
So you don't
So
have to be careful what you say or how you act around them.
no, because we've been, our families have been, like this from the time. I mean, they
Oh,
were literally our best friends.
oh,
We did
okay.
things together and everything. So I haven't. The race is just not even an issue between our families.
Right on. Nice. Were women created to lead or to follow?
Woo! Well, I'll give you a biblical answer there. I have a doctorate from Harvard. I have
Right.
written a best-selling book. I graduated college at 19. I've lived all over the world. I have done a lot of things in my life. And those things included being a feminist. I was very much, confident that no man can tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I really deepened in my faith and in my marriage and came to understand that my husband, it was not about being submissive to him, was not about being beneath him. It was about him being the buffer between me and the world.
Yeah.
It was more about him being the protector, the provider, the strength that I could rely on so I could relax. And so I did not, there's someone at my door.
So, in short, were women created to follow or to lead?
Well, I think neither. So God values all people equally. That's whether their race, their gender, it doesn't matter. He created us. He talks about the body. I don't know if you know that part of scripture where he says, some are a hand, some are an eye, some are
Right.
an ear. We are all meant to be unique and to contribute our unique. If the whole body was nothing but muscles, then we wouldn't have a heart. We wouldn't have eyes, right? So the way I view the structure of the family, the children, the father, the mother, the government, the church, the hierarchy of how it comes together, it's designed perfectly. I do not feel that for my husband to be the authority in my home is oppressive to me. I feel that for him to be the authority is liberating to me because it enables me then to focus on what I want to focus on and not have to worry about those things because he's there as a buffer.
So
And that
you
only
like you?
works if you trust each other.
Yeah.
If you have, that's why it says, men love your wives the way Christ loved the church.
So let me ask this
Because we can
because.
trust Christ, and if you have a husband you can't trust, then you do not want to be submissive to him.
So let me ask
But
this: so do you believe in that order of God and Christ, Christ and man, man over woman, women over children?
yes, I do.
You do. Do you obey your husband?
Well, unfortunately, I am divorced due to poor moral decisions that my husband made. And I would not have gotten divorced on my own, but he made poor decisions. And so I did my level best when we were married to let him be the authority that I think God created him to be. And it
Okay.
was difficult for him to step into that position because it requires strength and hard work to be an authority. It's not you get to call the shots and push people around. It's that you have to stand in the gap and
Amazing.
actually be a strong person and take responsibility.
And so you were trying to obey him, but he didn't allow it to happen?
Yeah, he had a lot of, yeah, he made some poor moral decisions, unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So listen, I need you to give me, because of time, I need like a quick answer from you about this. I wish I could go long, but because of time, you were one of the first people warning us about the RFID microchip, and what can you tell people in a few words or less? What is the microchip, and why were you against it?
So, well, that's a whole other topic we could talk about.
Yeah, I'll have you
I
back
have
for that
been,
too.
I'll do it quickly. So, the microchips, those were designed to be hidden in consumer products and used to track us.
Yeah.
So, if you had an RFID tag, and I went to meetings where I snuck into meetings where I saw them designing these, they could slip them in the soles of shoes, put them in the seams of your clothing where you wouldn't know they were there. And then the idea was to have doorway readers and readers in the floor mats that would keep track of us and see the items in a woman's purse or know what kind of color of underwear you were wearing and make all these links. They even wanted to take our garbage bags, because this would replace the barcode, and scan the garbage bags so they could tell what you had in your house and what you were throwing away. And if you had a dog food in there, they would see, do you have a dog license? And then they would fine you if you didn't. Or, if there's litter by the side of the road, they could scan the Coke can and figure out who purchased it with
Wow.
what credit card and send you a ticket in the mail. So it was a pretty nasty plan. We actually stopped it, but I think the end point of that was the microchip implants. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, but I noticed that some people allow them to be put into their arms.
Yeah, it's crazy. I can't even imagine. So we did a protest in an Alzheimer's care facility because they were injecting Alzheimer's patients who had no idea what was being done to them. Their families didn't give permission. They were injecting them with those microchips in order to keep track of them, like they were animals. And we did a prayer vigil, a march, and a protest, and we got them to stop. And we got laws passed in a number of states that say you cannot require somebody to get a microchip for employment or require it for government services. You can't make people get chips.
What a mess! So listen,
it's horrible.
I got to put you on the hot seat. I need you to answer these questions as quickly as possible.
Okay, I will try.
All right.
Yes.
The hot seat.
What is love?
What is love? God is love.
When I become president, I plan to ban all computers. Would you vote for me?
No.
Have you ever seen a ghost?
No.
Is the earth flat or round?
It is round.
What is a man?
A man is testosterone XY chromosome created in the image of God.
True or false? When she is crying, she's lying.
Oh, that's false. That's false. I've never been more honest in my life than when I've cried. Yeah.
Which is worse, abortion or slavery?
Well, in slavery, you're at least not being killed. They're both terrible, but abortion is literally murder.
Should we give the blacks reparations?
No.
Does the bear shoot in the woods?
To the best of my knowledge. Never seen it happen, though.
Does a chicken have lips?
What was that?
Does a chicken have lips?
Nope. They have a beak. I had ducks.
Is it ever okay to call a woman fat?
Sure, if she is fat.
True or false, sending your kids to the public school is child abuse?
No.
Did you vote for the Great White Hope?
Who is that? Donald Trump?
Yes, of course.
I do not reveal my like I said, you don't talk politics or religion. I will talk religion, but I'm not going to reveal who I voted for. I'll just say I didn't like Kamala Harris.
I don't blame you. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Did you have fun?
I had a wonderful time. This was a blast.
Right on.
Get me back. I'll be back on. You know what we need to talk about? So I helped found to create the private email start mail. And today the news just broke that all people's Gmail accounts were compromised through sophisticated hack affecting 1.8 billion Gmail accounts. And start mail, it's not free, but email shouldn't be free. We created a private alternative. I'd love to talk to you about it.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is I'm writing a book on the dangers posed by artificial intelligence, because the people building it say there's a 15% chance it's going to make us extinct and kill us all. The people building it say that, not me.
Well, I would definitely want to have you back on that. Tell the folks how to get your books to your website or whatever you want to put out there right now.
Awesome. So I have a children's book. It's called I Won't Take the Mark. And it is about Revelation. It teaches children the thing that I learned as an 8-year-old from my grandma and everybody else did in my generation that nowadays nobody knows. That's the mark of the beast, the 666 that is in Revelation, that the enemy will put on all people, rich and poor, free and bond. Everybody will get it. And I wrote a children's book about it. It's called I Won't Take the Mark, and it's on my website. So I'm going to tell you my website.
Yes.
It's hard to spell, so hopefully your tech people can put it up on the screen. But it is Katherine-Albrecht.com. That's my name, Katherine. There's a dash, and then my last name's Albrecht, Albrecht. That's where people can listen to my daily radio show.
Yes.
I do a daily show Monday through Friday. That's where they can listen to, they can see my book. They can check out, I have a section on spiritual health where they can listen to audio content. There's also a place where they can chat with me or send me a message.
Right on. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It was fun, and I will have you back. And I want to remind you folks, thank you all so much for tuning in. Don't forget to support The Fallen State by support The Fallen State by joining our membership program on YouTube, or go to locals.com and become a member there. Check out Punch's Coffee on JesseLeePeterson.shop. Don't forget to like, follow, check out the merch, ring the bell, and do all those amazing things. Thank you so much for coming on. I absolutely appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse. I had a great time. I'd love to come back. God bless you and your listeners and your viewers.
Right on. You too. Thank you. Amazing.